So we're talking about the plank. So the exercise that we're looking at is this exercise here and this position. Now, if you struggle with that position, with that full plank, then the first place to start is coming down onto the knees. Now, with regards to being in this position, what we need to be able to do is essentially maintain we need to maintain the neutral posture through the spine, but it basically needs to be flat from the hips to the shoulders. You can go hips slightly lower than the shoulders, that's no problem, but there's always going to be that sort of hinge at the hip where it goes down to the knee, so that's normal. The only other thing to think about is when you're in that position, what some people will do is they'll be in this sort of position, so the hips will be up, so it's just then take the shoulders forward and hold there. Now, the other thing that you may need to do is just activate the abdominal wall, so just pull that in tight. Now, with regards to that, so that's the first and easiest way of performing the plank. Obviously, then next it's then coming up into a full plank. Now, what is the plank doing for core strength and stability? Well, number one, it's making you conscious of activating the muscle. So when you come into this position and you consciously activate, you're putting all the load through the abdominal wall, which is where it wants to be. A lot of people, they will be slightly slack there or won't be as active there, and it will start to go into the lower back. So what we need to be able to do is get the brace and the activation of the abdominal wall, which will then pull the load into the front, which is where we want it, because that's what the plank is there for. It's there to build that initial strength to be able to get into position. Then we build the endurance into it by being able to hold it for a long time. What we then do is once we can get into the plank on the knees and we've got some endurance with it, we can then come up into the full plank, because the kneeling plank doesn't require as much strength as the full plank. So when we come into the full plank, this is where we need a bit of greater strength. So we then hold this position. And again, we do exactly the same. We have the shoulders over the elbows, we have that neutral posture of the spine, and we maintain a relatively straight line through the shoulders, hips and ankles. That requires more strength, so we're starting to build core strength by just going from the kneeling plank up into the full plank. When we start bringing in, or how the plank is then able to develop stability, is more at the top end, because what we're going to now start doing is we're now going to start lifting an arm up and going into what would be described as a plank with an arm raise. So we've got the strength from the kneeling plank and the full plank, so we've built strength up. What we're now going to do, now that we've got that strength and endurance, we're now going to start adding stability into it, because when my arm lifts off the floor, what's going to be required, or what's going to need to happen, is you're going to need to create more tension to hold the position. So what happens is we go narrow elbows, wide feet, we lift an arm up and we go into that position, and then we lift an arm up and go into that position. Now, what's happening there? When I lift an arm up, so when I lift my left arm up, you'll feel all of it go across into the left side of the abdomen, because that's what needs to be working to hold that position. When I lift the right arm up, it swaps and goes to the other side. So this is now stability, being able to activate the right muscles at the right time. How do we know we've got that? The hip should stay centered. If we haven't got it, we'll come into this position and we'll start doing this, or we'll kick the weight to kick the hips to the side. So there'll be like a rotation of the hip, or a weight shift, or even a dropping of the hip. If we've got all three, so the hips are centered, we lift an arm up, we've now got good stability through that position, because we're able to transfer the load from the left side to the right side, back to the left side, so on and so forth, as I perform more of the arm raises. So that in itself is going to require more strength, an additional amount of endurance, if you will, but also it's going to require that stability to go from side to side as well. The final part to all of this is going from the plank up into the side plank, because it requires the ability to hold the plank, the ability to lift the arm up, and then the ability to roll to the side. So what that looks like is we come into this position, we lift an arm up, and then we roll to the side. What we then do is we roll back over into that position, then we put the arm down, and we come up the other side. we come down and into that position. So it's very important that we progress it in this way. We don't just jump into the side plank to side plank, because what we've done through all these progressions is we've developed the strength, we've developed the endurance, and we've developed the strength, stability or stability. So when we lift the arm up, as I mentioned before, we lift the arm up, it moves over here. As I then roll to the side, you'll feel it, it'll roll right back onto the other side, onto the lower side. And then when you roll back over, it'll roll back to the middle, put the arm down, swap over, it'll go here, roll up to the side, and it will roll round. That's you being able to stabilize the area and create tension where you need it, which is what a stable core is. So with regards to how the plank builds the strength and stability of the core, is if it's done in the right way, and if you know how to measure your strength and your stability, going from the kneeling plank to the full plank, to the plank with arm raise, to the plank up into the side plank, will show that you've got good strength to hold the position, the endurance to hold it for a long period of time, and then stability to hold the body in the position that you want it to without any compensations, which is what all the hip movements are.